2023 may be Disney's worst year they have ever had in their history, and it's not even close. To celebrate their 100th year as a company, they've released movie after movie, which has basically led to blunder after blunder. And listen, I'm not here to plague you when it comes to the politics of these movies. I'm really here mostly to talk about the merits of whether or not the movie was good or not. And for most of Disney's 2023 film lineup, the movies have not been good. So I thought it would be interesting to go through each major 2023 Disney film and basically figure out, why was this year so bad? I'm Zeepster, subscribe and like, and let's just get straight into it. Ant-Man Quantumania. We're starting off with disappointment. We're not going to be covering the Disney Plus shows, or even the exclusive movies put on there. I think the best way to judge Disney's quality is by judging them by their theatrical releases, movies such as Elemental, Wish, Guardians of the Galaxy 3, among other films. Ant-Man Quantumania was basically the first movie where Disney fans and outsiders all universally agreed, whoa, what's going on here? It's not like it's a remarkably bad movie per se. I mean, it's no like Avengers Endgame, it's just not really like anything special, which is fairly bad to say, especially since the villain they're setting up here, Kang, is supposed to be the big baddie of these next few phases of Marvel movies. And Kang, he's fine, he's like a fine enough villain, but he doesn't strike me as that villain who's going to be that humongous threat for the next few years. It doesn't help that the actor for Kang, Jonathan Majors, is also dealing with allegations that might diminish his future role as a main villain for the Marvel Universe, meaning there might have to be like some fine-tuning when it comes to the next Avengers flick, because right now, things are pretty much a mess. You see, the cool thing about Thanos is that he was kind of a mystery throughout most of the movies. He was someone to hype up to, someone who was an actual threat. With Kang, they kind of just put him in Quantumania and they're just like, oh look, here he is now. He's kinda cool, right guys? Do you like him? Well, according to the box office numbers, no one really cared. Okay, for those who haven't watched this movie, the movie establishes that Kang has various versions of himself from various different types of timelines. King the Conqueror, who's the main rendition and villain of this movie, is being hyped up of being like, guys, this one's actually the best one out of all of them. Only for him to get like owned by like giant robotic ants. But don't worry, Marvel promotes more Kangs at the end credits of this movie, being like, oh, if you thought he was a threat, there's a bunch of these other guys who are also Kangs. And at that point, it makes the villain like not really special. Like, who cares if this Kang got defeated? All these other ones, they're probably gonna get defeated too. You gave us a villain who's unimpressive, only for that unimpressive villain to get defeated, and you're trying to get us hyped up by showing us hundreds of versions of that unimpressive villain? Oh, but don't worry. At least we have a version of MODOK that looks like garbage. It really was a bad movie to start off the year with a disappointing box office run, but hey, one mediocre movie won't be enough to destroy their year, right? You could definitely bounce back. Well, let's check out the other movies. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. This is by far the best movie Disney has released this year. But that isn't really good news when you realize that the director of this movie is leaving the company, so he can make other superhero movies for one of your biggest competitors. Yeah, I'm being serious. James Gunn is jumping ship at really one of the best times. Guardians 3 serves as the ending to an amazing trilogy. Multiple arcs are wrapped up in a movie that really feels like Rocket's movie. It's definitely one of the most mature Marvel movies out of all of them, with a scene in the middle of the movie that's like really heart-wrenching. It really is a Marvel movie that shows you how you deal with the aftermath of Thanos. It's one of the most emotional and character-focused movies I've seen in the entire MCU, and once again, that isn't a credit to Disney, that's a credit to the director of the movie. It felt like a return to old MCU form. It wasn't hyping up a big baddie or anything. It's just a great standalone film about friendship and love. Unique. That's all I can really say. And unfortunately, I can't really say that about the next one. Elemental. God damn, this is like the 4th time I'm talking about this movie on this YouTube channel, so I'll try to keep this brief. So Guardians of the Galaxy 3, it did fairly okay in the box office, and Elemental, at first it didn't do well, but then it started to pick up steam, and now it's like okay at the box office. This is Pixar's showing for this year, and honestly, it's like whatever. Don't get me wrong, the backstory for this film is fairly touching, as the director grew inspiration from his own parents who are immigrants. I mean, I do like the art style, and even Wade, the main character, could be pretty funny sometimes too, but the problem here is that there's not really much else going on with the film. And that's a problem we'll see time and time again when it comes to 2023's lineup. There isn't much of anything. It could always be worse, however. You could always be The Little Mermaid 2023. Speaking of the devil, I'm sad to admit I've seen The Little Mermaid 2023 in theaters. Talk about a cash grab. I do like the main actress for Ariel. I think she's pretty good. I do not like much of anything else. As we may know, Disney's been doing this trend for the past couple years where they try to transition their big animated hits into live-action slop. And honestly, by this point I can't get mad anymore, just disappointed by this entire output. This might be one of the most flattest films I've ever seen. It's to a point where it's kind of awkward, the CGI effects are really jarring, and I can't get over how bad Sebastian looks. I mean, yeah, he does look like a realistic crab, but that just makes this kind of creepy in a way. You see, in the original, Sebastian's animated and fairly charismatic, while when he's a realistic crab, he's way more limited in the things that he can do. And he's CGI here, so like, I don't know, maybe try and make this more imaginative? Honestly, it could have been worse. Sebastian could have had the fate of Scuttle the Seagull. Yeah, they completely massacred Scuttle. Okay, so Scuttle is voiced by this rapper by the name of Aquafina. I've never listened to any of her songs, but after watching this movie, I know now I don't need to. One of the worst moments in the entire movie has to be when Scuttle sings her own song known as the Scuttlebutt. It sucks. It just sucks. Here, let me play you a clip. What are we thinking here? We're thinking awesome, or we're thinking this sucks? Jonah King, the guy who plays the prince, is funny to watch act though. He's kind of awkward, but there is some charm to it though, in a way where it's basically just funny to laugh at. Truly one of the most bizarre movies I've seen all year. With that being said, the movie did do okay in the box office. I cannot say the same thing when it comes to a legacy character, however. Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. I gotta be honest here, I've never been super into Indiana Jones. I mean, I like the ride at Disneyland, and the movies are fine enough. I just never really grew up with them, you know? With this movie being the so-called final film, I can definitely say it was okay. And that's what a lot of the audience goers say about the film. It's very much an action film, and if you compare it to past Indiana Jones films, it moves way too quickly. Almost as if they forgot how to make an Indiana Jones movie. The dynamic between Indy and their companion is usually critical when it comes to these movies, and this time Indy's companion is his goddaughter, and it's kind of forced. Throughout the entirety of it, they're really annoyed with each other, which makes you wonder if they really even care about each other. There are random heart-to-hearts between the both of them, which don't really get flourished out. I don't know, the entirety of this movie just kind of feels like they're going through the motions of what they think an Indiana Jones movie should be. It's just really a movie that makes you feel like, okay, that was kind of weird. What was the point of making this? I mean, I didn't hate it. It was just like, alright, there it is. Indy's story is now done again, even though that already happened in The Last Crusade when he just rode off away in the sunset, which would have been a much better way to end off his character. Something that I will say about this character is that I keep seeing a trope where Disney sets up one of our favorite characters and allows us to revisit them, only to find that later in their lives they're broken shells of themselves. I guess that's their only way to make them interesting again, because the last time we saw them, they actually had a good ending, so why not shake it up and make them depressed? It's just like really unsatisfying and kind of insults the original ending. Audiences reacted not too well to this film in terms of the box office. The budget for the movie was $300 million, with the movie making back $384 million. Keep in mind, this doesn't account for the fact that they had to promote this movie, which was likely an additional $200 million. This movie bombed. It didn't do well at all. And it's not surprising. It's a 2.5 hour long movie that's really bloated, of a character most audiences would just like them to leave alone. It's not like people hate Indy, it's more like, why bother revisiting him? His story's done. However, if you were looking for something kind of original, we did have the Haunted Mansion at the end of July. Listen, I like the original Haunted Mansion with Eddie Murphy. It gives me a lot of nostalgia and a warm feeling to it. As for the new movie, it came out, and holy shit, it did really bad. A budget of $150 million and a box office of $117 million. Yeah, easy to say the numbers weren't looking good for the mouse. I gotta be honest, I have not watched this movie, so I can't really fairly review it. I mean, I've been on the ride at Disneyland like 100 times because I have an annual pass, but this movie didn't really interest me. Why should I waste like 18 bucks to go see it? Reviews of the movie state that the film isn't really that bad. Apparently for a kid's film, it's actually fairly scary, and also some common themes about grief, making it one of the more sophisticated Disney movies based on the Disneyland ride. I mean, better than that of Jungle Cruise. It's fairly surprising that the movie didn't do too well, especially with all the stars attached to it. Jamie Lee Curtis, Jared Leto, Danny DeVito, Owen Wilson? Not even Lightning McQueen himself could save this. I guess star power itself isn't enough to carry films nowadays, especially the modern day Disney films, who can get whatever star they'd like to star in their movies, only for it to fail because the concept isn't interesting enough. It's okay, it's all okay, because after Haunted Mansion, Disney came back in full force delivering a movie that's bad. Okay, The Marvels. This movie did bad. Like, astronomically bad. Critics weren't too kind to it, and neither were audience goers going to go see it. Okay, so get this. This was the lowest opening weekend ever for an MCU film. And the week after it came out, there was a 78% drop, making it the all-time largest drop for a Marvel film, and the worst for any Hollywood superhero film in modern history. I'm not really seeing anything new here, if I'm being honest. Everyone's been saying that Marvel has fallen off. That's what I was saying when I was covering Ant-Man. It really is nothing exciting, and this film is the epitome of all of that. There really is no quality control here. As if they just released the movie as is, it didn't bother to ensure, hey, this might not be that good. But hey, it's Marvel, people will eat it up, right? No, not at all. You have one of the most underwhelming villains of all time, who just creates portals that sucks things up. She's fairly unimpressive, and the audience can't help but feel like, why should I care? The movie tries to be funny, way more than it probably should be trying, because none of the jokes land at all. Generic mindless action occurs for 2.5 hours. Nick Fury is more comedy relief, he's not really cool, like he used to be. It's all just so tiresome. So tiresome that Disney's probably going to lose $300 million just on this movie alone. But hey, to cap off this eventful year for Disney, and I do mean that term eventful, we have, ladies and gentlemen, Disney's Wish, a movie made to celebrate Disney's 100th anniversary of being a company. How do they cap off this year, you may ask? Well, with garbage. This movie is the amalgamation of Disney's 2023. First, let's start off with the least bad. Number 1, the animation is weird, but I could deal with it. Most people have a problem with it, especially with the opinion that it looks unfinished, and I get that. Compared to Disney and Pixar's recent outings, it's fairly jarring to see such a significant change in art styles. I'm pretty sure this was done deliberately. To celebrate 100 years, they wanted to blend the old and the new, which I can respect. I do think that's a nice little nod to the days of old. Does it look fantastic? No, not really with this weird blend, but it is an okay homage. I do appreciate that. However, there is another reason why the movie looks like this, and it basically sums up to, it was hard for them to animate it to be fully traditional. Oh, okay. It's your 100th anniversary and it's too hard to create this? It's animation by all means. You guys are creators, right? Guys, like, you guys are Disney. The main character's name is Asha, the newest member of the Disney princesses, and she's fairly quirky, as are most of the modern Disney princesses. This isn't exactly bad, per se, but what's with like the recent trend of main Disney characters, of them being quirky and like kind of awkward?
I'm so nervous I think I'm going to explode.
My best friend, the King's Apprentice.
My mouth drooping? I feel like it's drooping.
Like, I enjoyed Encanto for the most part, but it kind of bothered me that our lead there was also kind of quirky, a little awkward, kind of all over the place. I feel like we've seen this trope over and over again within the past few years, and here it's really just like been there, done that multiple times. It's kind of ironic in a way, because when Frozen came out in 2013, it was trying to challenge the trope that the princess was always in need of a hero. Now we have a new trope. The princess has to always be goofy. Something I really don't like about the movie is the music. Just take a listen to the soundtrack on YouTube, especially the villain song. It's the most undevious villain song of all time. The villain's name is King Magnifico, who doesn't really start off that evil, but he's possessed by this book and then becomes evil. I guess he's not really evil per se, he's just possessed to be evil. What happened to Disney villains, dude? I get it, modern Disney films have become more, oh, there's like a deeper problem within, or oh, the main character has to face some sort of trial, and that counts as a villain. It's kind of funny, because the first half of the movie, they build him up as some sort of tragic villain, with a backstory that kind of justifies why he doesn't want to grant everybody's wishes, and then all of a sudden, it's like, nah, never mind, he's evil now because this book says so. He's not a villain I hate per se. I mean, when it comes to characters I really don't like, it's the goat. The goat sucks. It's a talking goat, okay? And he tries to be quirky for the kids, making the most unfunny jokes of all time. Anyways, back to the music of the movie. You may have heard this, but a lot of Wish is fairly pop-centric, almost as if Disney is purposely trying to make the music as easily digestible as possible, just so they could try and attempt to get like a Let It Go, or We Don't don't talk about Bruno again in their hands. And I get Disney's attempt to. It'd be stupid if they didn't try to attempt to get to the top 40 again. It's only bad when you try to attempt it with every single song. It even makes more sense when you find out that the songwriters for this movie have created a lot of pop hits for a lot of famous musicians. So in my mind, this was a clear attempt by Disney to try and make this movie's soundtrack as accessible as possible. I don't know, man. I mean, you can experiment, but if you're really hyped up of trying to make this a celebration of 100 years of Disney, wouldn't you want to go a little traditional and try and get like musical theater writers? However, to celebrate the 100th anniversary of Disney, the movie does have a lot of references to older films, at a point where it comes off as a little too forced. Like, for example, the goat's biggest wish is that one day he'll create a metropolitan for animals everywhere. Wink wink, Zootopia. A couple weeks before this movie came out, I did watch the short Once Upon a Studio. I enjoyed that a lot. It was cute, it didn't overstay its welcome, and was a nice homage to the company. A company that has not had a good 2023. It's just disappointing. I don't think this is the end of Disney. They'll likely come back. But it is quite the bummer, especially coming from a guy who loves their theme parks, but can't bear to watch any of their modern movies because of how bland they are. I've been Zeep, subscribe, see you guys soon. Love ya.